Well, I can't wait for you to sit down with me to enjoy this conversation with Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp. Nathalie is a doctor of chiropractic. She's a functional medicine practitioner. She's an author of Hack Your Health Habits, which is what we're talking about today, her amazing new encyclopedia type book on optimizing our health. She's a podcaster, a TV personality, and an inspiration and mentor to me and to so many other people. We're going to dig into why she wrote the book, some of the 12 pillars. We'll dig into that. And we're also going to go into a little bit about her very personal story. So here we go with Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp. Welcome, Nathalie.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. Always love chatting with you. We're both passionate about, a very similar topic. So it just, let's dig in and see what will come up.
I love that. And I love that. We had a few minutes before we hit record, and it was like, let's just dig in and see where this conversation goes. I, first of all, want to start with the resource, the big Bible encyclopedia. I want to know, you spent over 3 years writing this book. Mm-hmm. I want to know things like, did it grow and grow and grow and grow as you started the process of writing? Did it get bigger and bigger and you realized that you needed to add more and more into it? And were there any surprises in your research or in the writing that came as a result of writing it?
Yeah, all great questions. So where do I start? Funny enough, I was a mutual friend of mine and co-host, Nathalie Beauchamp, was interviewing me on her show, and she had this cute little book, and it was all pictures, pretty much with quotes, and I flipped through it, and I said, geez, it's totally in line. Like, I literally could have written that little booklet, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll do another book, and I'll keep it simple. Yeah, right. That didn't work too well. Seriously, I still go back to Nathalie and tell her it's your fault. It took me so long, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so to answer your question, yes, I started writing, and I'm a perpetual student. I always say if there was a full-time job at being a reader or a professional student, I think I would take that job any day. And the reason I kept writing is that throughout the years, I did tons of online courses, personal development, and everything. And I'm always wanting to stay at, cutting edge when it comes to health. And I'm also fascinated about people's way of thinking, people's psychology. What's going to make someone tick? Why does it have to be, the diagnosis of a heart attack or not the diagnosis, but the event of a heart attack or the diagnosis of cancer for people to say, you know what? Wow, that was a warning sign. I need to do. So it's my passion for health. It's my passion for what makes people tick. And also my passion of, as a chiropractor, we have the philosophy of above, down, inside out for health. So above, down, meaning from brain to the rest of the body. So we need communication to be clear, and inside out, not outside in, because our society is a lot with outside in, meaning looking for a pill or a potion or a lotion to apply instead of healing from the inside with nutrition and mindset and all of that stuff. So to me, that's been my quest to try to find a way for people to understand that, because I myself have had my challenges, and we'll talk about my personal history, but I get up in the morning and I'm good to go. I have energy. I'm going to be turning 50. And I know there are some 20 years old that can't keep up with me, because I love what I do. I have passion, but I also live, the chiropractic healthy lifestyle. And when I hear people that are just tired and sluggish, and it's like, oh my God, it doesn't have to be that way. So yes, I started writing, didn't think it was going to be this thick. And I remember talking to my publisher when it was all done and telling him that it was 600 pages. He says, oh my God, Nathalie, you can't have a 600-page book. I said, yes, I can. Watch me go. It's been a challenge because it's heavy, from a logistical point of view as well. But what I wanted to do is put together in one book pretty much everything that someone needed to be healthy. I mean, there's tons of references at the end, as you know, if people want to dig deeper, but I didn't want people to have to read 12 books. And that's why there's 12 sections. And it's all stuff that that are part of my own personal journey. You know, the philosophies chapter. You would have told me I was going to write a chapter on philosophy. I would have said, are you out of your freaking mind? But guess what? Throughout the years, I got to understand philosophy, and that even if we think we don't have a philosophy, not having a philosophy is a philosophy. So our way of looking at the world. So anyway, and then I applied it to health. And again, just to get in the mindset and helping people prioritizing and so forth. So didn't think it was going to be 600 pages, but here we are.
So here's the thing I want to know. We're going to go backwards a little bit. You've said so many amazing things, and I want to make sure we dig in. What is it that you learned about the brain that can help people not have to get that diagnosis or that heart event or that, really serious health issue or crisis in their life to decide to make changes? What was it that you found in your research?
Well, I think it's two things. And one is the physical brain, but I would say that's kind of the second one. The first one is having a big enough why, period. Because if people don't see the point of changing or don't think it's valuable enough to make that change, I mean, so many people have, I want to lose some weight. Well, some weight, what in the world does that mean? Maybe it's 5 pounds, maybe it's 10 pounds. And you know what? Probably not a big deal if they do, if they don't. And also, I think people are so overwhelmed with the amount of information that someday, okay, take vitamin D supplement. No, don't take vitamin D. And they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do anymore. Therefore, I'm not going to do anything because I don't know what to do anymore. So to me, that was huge to try to encourage people to, question their why. And also realize that there is a lot that we can do. I always go back to, genetic is maybe 5%, 95% of what happens to us is our lifestyle. So again, with marketing and the way our society is, a pill for an ill and, a potion and lotion and all of that stuff, and we're looking outside from out to heal ourselves, as opposed to do it, like I said, from inside and out. So to me, hopefully when people read the book, they're like, you know what? I control a lot more than I thought. So therefore, I will put the time and the effort because, you know what? I don't want to be a burden on my kids, when I grow old, because I want to be able to play with my grandkids, because I want to have the energy to do whatever I want or travel or whatever it is. So we really have to dig with that why. And then the second part of that question, or what I came to the conclusion of, is because so many people are in a chronic state of inflammation that their brain is inflamed and they can't even think straight. And some people are, full of chemicals from what they eat, what they consume, or medication and so forth. So part of it, as I said, is finding a big enough why, but also having the brain-body connection and the clarity to ask those questions, because so many people are walking around kind of numb, it just, life is busy and kids' activities and this and that. So sometimes it's just a matter of sitting back and even just taking the time to read a chapter and do the 3 levels, of hacking that I'm suggesting, or sit down and say, okay, what did I learn? What do I want to change, or do I need to change anything? Or maybe you're doing great and pat on the back and let's keep going to the next one. But I know that I always say we're a work in progress, right? There's always things that we can do better, and our needs change as we age as well. My goals, from a physical point of view, are not what they used to be when I was 30, and it's okay. But I have to be able to sit back and say, you know what? Don't need to do this anymore. So, it's having that awareness. So I know it's a long answer, but hopefully it answered what you were looking for.
Definitely. And I think that what you're really touching on is that why has to be completely it is an individual. It's not, I'm going to take the why of somebody else and I'm going to adopt it for myself. And I think that's really the trouble that a lot of people get into, is where we see someone doing really well on a diet or on a lifestyle change. And we think, well, if they're doing really well, I'm going to do the same thing. And so what I love so much about your work is that you really look at that bio individuality, everybody being different. There is not a one size fits all approach to each person's lifestyle. But when we read a book like this, everyone can relate to every single chapter. There is something in every chapter for every person that rents or owns a human body. Mm-hmm. And what I love so much, and you know this about me, is that I am so food focused, and you are so the same in that respect, that you are so passionate about food first. Mm-hmm. Let's really look at what we are putting into our bodies. And then from there, I really feel like that is such a way in. When I work with my students, it's like, if we can just work with the food first, the way that we use food in our lives and the way that we nourish our bodies with the foods that we choose can make such a huge difference. And it can help in that, that cognitive ability to be able to make better choices moving forward. And I feel like it's just, again, your book is so amazing because it's like success breeds success. So let's talk about the levels that you were saying about we work through 12 pillars. Yeah.
When I get interviewed, people ask me why the book and so forth. And it's just, first is I know how much there is out there in the confusion. And second, from being in practice 23 years and seeing, oh my goodness, I don't know how many thousands of patients I've seen in that time frame, seeing people saying, oh, I know I should work out. I know. But why weren't they doing anything? So it becomes, all about changing our habits. So that's why, to me, it made sense to dig deeper into that, knowing the why first, and then making sure that we're implementing things for habits. And then I discovered that when people fail, usually at a goal, is because they took on too much. So I came up with those 3 levels because some things are easy to change. And you talk about that moving forward and that momentum. And sometimes, let's face it, it feels good to check something off the freaking to-do list, doesn't it? Right? So why not start with a small level 1 that's easy to implement and you feel good about yourself? So a level 1, for example, is changing deodorant. So let's say, a person realized, oh my God, look at the ingredient on this, goes to the local store, buys new one. It's not too hard of a habit because they already were, putting on deodorant every morning. So that's easy and it makes us feel good. So great. A level 2 may need a little bit more thinking. An example I give is, vitamins. A lot of people will say, oh, dang, I keep forgetting to take my vitamins. So what is it that you do every day that you're not going to leave your house without it? And for some people, it's their coffee. For some people, it's, they won't go out without brushing their teeth. I know for some people, some people have told me it's their earrings. They will not go out of the house without earrings because they feel naked. I said, hey, you know what? Put your vitamin beside your item or whatever that that it's, you're going to do. And then have a plan B. So maybe it's having one of those vitamin Ks to put in your purse or your briefcase, or leave, duplicates of your vitamins at work. So this one needs a little bit more work. I know myself, I was having a hard time taking my vitamins at night. So what I do now is I take them out in the morning. Literally drives my husband crazy because they're on the counter, but I don't care. I just put them right there, that they're ready to go, for me to consume before I eat my dinner. So you really have to find those tricks and hacks to make sure it happens. And then a 3 is losing 20 pounds. It's stopping smoking. It's something that's big. And I walk people through, a 5-step, 7-step, and 9-step process. So the 5-step, pretty easy. We talked about. 7th is, to find those hooks where you are sure that you're going to repeat it. And the level 3 is all about accountability as well, and rewarding yourself. So I found that when people did those 2 added steps for the bigger ones, success was much, much higher. So accountability could be, going to the gym with someone that's going to make you accountable, because they're going to be there at 6 o'clock and say, where are you? That accountability. Maybe it's joining programs like yours. Maybe it's joining, kind of a more of a boutique gym that, there's going to be that camaraderie, like whatever it takes. But and then the second component is to have that end goal and that reward. I know some people really need that reward, and the reward doesn't have to be like, an ice cream sundae here. It can be a trip. It can be, whatever it is. So I think adding those components really increase the success rate. But at the end of the day, I go back to the why. If you're not strong, or you don't really know why you would do this because somebody else is doing it, then you need to understand. You need to have the knowledge and the education about that topic so you can make better decisions. Because at the end of the day, we all have to eat and nourish our body. So we might as well get knowledgeable, because nobody else is going to feed us. So we have to really pay attention to it.
Yeah, it's so much about taking ourselves, putting ourselves in the driver's seat. And I think that so many of us, you touched on it earlier, we talk about, I just have bad genetics. My mother was that way. My sister's that way. I don't have willpower. And I know that on the back of the book, you wrote something, and where is it? I wrote, you talk about taking responsibility for our health. You talk about you talk about taking ourselves out of victim mode. And that's what I wanted to touch on there. It's just that idea that we can honestly put ourselves in the driver's seat and realize that sometimes I think people look at healthy people and they think that they just somehow have this whole other, experience. And it's like, no, they might have been raised differently for sure. But at the end of the day, we are adults, and we all can be empowering ourselves to get in the driver's seat, to decide that health is a priority. And then we can pick up something like this, and we can honestly just get started somewhere. And that's what I love about it. So I wanted to ask you, who did you have in mind when you started writing this book? Who did you write it for?
Well, you've read the book, so you know that in the book we have this character called Catherine. So Catherine is 42 years old, mom. She's working. She's trying to do the right thing for herself. She's reading about health already, but it's busy. So I really wrote the book with her in mind. But, there's people that are maybe a little bit less into health than her, and there are people that are maybe a little bit more into health. And it's funny that you use the driver's seat for an example, because to me, we're always driving forward. So even I just went to see my naturopathic doctor not too long ago to run more tests, just because I want to make sure that I stay on top of things. So, you're right. We don't have it all figured out. And some of us, and I don't mind sharing my story, but I didn't grow up with this kind of environment. So at any day, and that's the beauty of being a human being, is that every day is a new day. And I always say to patients, if you did bad choices yesterday, well, guess what? Today is a new day. Forget about it. Don't, take a baseball bat and hit yourself over the head about it. Just start fresh and new. And how cool is that we can do that? We don't need a January 1st. We don't need a beginning of summer or, whatever. We can start every day. And I think, we have to be gentle with ourselves that, we are going to have some ups and downs because life happens. But at the end of the day, your body is your vehicle. So let alone being behind a driver's seat, your body is your vehicle. So
I love that so much, because it just makes me think that it's almost detrimental, I feel, in a way, of waiting to Monday, waiting for after the birthday, waiting for after Christmas, waiting for January 1st, like all of this waiting and thinking that, it's just not the right time to prioritize my health. Your life is still passing you by. Yeah. And like you were saying, at any time, no matter how we were raised, it doesn't matter what habits were instilled in us as children. We can change those now. When we talk about not being able to change, an old dog can't learn new tricks. That's just not true. The brain is malleable. We know this now about the brain. It is absolutely changeable. And just because our parents might have behaved in a certain way that they might have done the best they knew with what the information they had. But now that we know better, we can do better. Thank you, Dr. Angelou, for sharing that tidbit. And so I just think that's so empowering that we don't have to wait for the event, for the heart attack, for the diagnosis, for the extra 50 pounds on our bodies. We don't have to wait.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the 12 pillars, and you can certainly go into as much detail or as little as you like to, but I'd like people to know where you really laser focused in this book.
So to me, I needed to start with the motivation and setting the stage for good habits. So I talk about my personal prime time in the morning that, I have it in a format that I either do something physical, well, not either, but those 3 pillars. And sometimes it's 20 minutes. Like this morning, guess what? My workout was 20 minutes. That's all I had, but that's what I did. My meditation was 7 minutes and that's all I had. And that's, so stopping to think that we need this big, elaborate, giant plan or an hour and a half at the gym, that kind of stuff is crucial. So
I was going to even just jump in there to say, I think, again, that's what holds people back too, is thinking that I just don't have the things I need to set myself up for a healthy lifestyle. I don't have the resources or the access to the organic foods. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have money to afford a membership. Like, we can make all of these excuses. And yet, like you said, you're a busy woman and you make it happen every day because you've created these habits in your life. And habits are just so powerful. So I just love your book for that.
Thank you. And I think, when people start, and I see it with patients, and I'm just so excited for people when they start feeling that momentum that, hey, guess what? I'm getting up just a couple of weeks ago. A patient was saying she's getting up super early to do her workout as opposed to waiting at night. And she was having so much more energy and it's affecting her work. And I'm like, yay, you know what? So when you start seeing results, it's great. So get motivated, organized, and productive. The second is all about going back to basics. So I know people are still confused about good carb, bad carbs, or bad fat, good fats, so I went through all of that stuff in organic and phytonutrient, the importance of eating the color of the rainbow. And then section 3, I dig deeper into some diets. I talk about the ketogenic diet, which again is not for everyone, but I just wanted to have it there. Intermittent fasting and so forth. And then section 4, which is huge, is all about toxins and what we're bombarded with, our food, the electromagnetic field, the water, the air that we breathe. So I went in deep with that. Section 5 is all about supplements, or the main supplements and why we need them.
And can I just stop you there? Because I love the 4 supplements that you spoke at an event last year, and I was so on board with the 4 supplements that you recommend. Do you want me to list them, or do you have?
Well, a fantastic 4. So we live, in Canada here, we don't have much sun. So vitamin D, and get your level tested. Don't guess, just go and get them tested. It's so inexpensive.
Or you can even get it done with a medical doctor. Like they will, even just for free here in Ontario, you can go and OHIP covers that test. So. Yeah,
I think it covers like every 2 years, or there's a little bit of something, but you can still pay for it. I believe, but this is not an expensive test. No. Multivitamin, just to make sure that you're covering your bases, and then omega-3, because unfortunately our North American diets are so high in omega-6 that the ratio is distorted. Obviously, you want to lower your, not so good omega-6, but omega-3s, if people don't eat fish, we're out of, sync with that. And then a probiotic, just to make sure that, you have and maintain a good flora. Section 6 is all about exercise. And again, I think I dig deep into the fact that high intensity interval training are oftentimes the way to go. They're quick, they're efficient. Tabata. You don't need to do cardio for hours and so forth.
I love that section so much. First of all, because of your expertise in this area, you competed in fitness competitions, you placed, your arms, it's like arm goals. I love your body. It's absolutely incredible. And so I really dug in when I got to that section and really looked to you as an expert in that area. And again, I love how you don't make it a one size fits all. See how you feel. And most people don't do that well marathon running. Like I think that again, so many people sit there and say, well, I could never go to the gym. I hate running. I could never do that. You don't have to.
Exactly.
And it's not even necessarily the healthiest thing to do when it comes to our joints and our hips. And for people who love it, go for it. But
well, that's exactly it, right? Yeah. And I know for me, I have done a marathon because it was on my bucket list before I turned 40, and checked it off, and I'm like, yep, not doing that again. Again, it's I needed to feel and see how my body felt, and I said for me, with strength training is just such a better way to go. And that section also digs into functional movements and making sure, because you think of core, you think ab crunches, and believe me, as a chiropractor, I can tell you that people are sitting all day and their core are so weak, it's not even funny. And having those movements, because people will say, my back went out when I picked up a tissue. Well, obviously it's not the tissue, the issue here. That's mine. So I didn't mean to say that. It is that their core is just not functional. They're not working on their function.
And I love that you really touched on the core being important to strengthen, and the gluteus muscles as well. So our butt muscles and our core muscles really work to help with our posture as well.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And then the text neck, and we could go on a huge tangent on this. Section 7 is all about hormones. So I'm talking about adrenal hormone, thyroid, sex hormone, and also insulin, sugar. We're bombarded with sugar. Section 8 is all about the gut and the immune system. Section 9 is all about the brain, preventing cognitive decline. Section 10 is all about rest and recharging. So, I have a section on earthing on this.
And again, we live in a society that looks at sleep and napping or prioritizing rest as equating to laziness, and that you're not producing. You're not being productive if you are not working, 17, 18-hour days and sleeping 4 hours in that line of, sleep when you're dead. Yeah. It's like we really need to change that whole paradigm.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if you read her book, but I think it's called Thrive by Arianna Huffington. Yes. Because she basically burnt herself right out, and now she, changed her lifestyle, and then I think she's really on a mission to bring awareness to that. Definitely. Section 11 is all about taking control of your health with knowing your number, your wellness team, and then section 12 kind of talks about, your life purpose, your why, and your philosophy, and 10x thinking. And at the end, I interview 6 women who are, in my life that I felt were inspiring with their stories. So that's how the book finishes. So
I love
that's
it.
Like from top to bottom.
It's a beautiful, beautiful read. And I imagine there are some people out there who read it from start to finish. That is not the way that I use this book. I sort of, if there's something that I'm interested in or want to learn about, I open to that section. If there's something that I'm just more curious about, I take some more time to spend on that chapter. Or other times I did just kind of go through. I started at the beginning. Of course, at the beginning, I did learn more about your story. And you had shared a little bit with me throughout our friendship, but I really didn't know the crux of it. So I was wondering now if you wouldn't mind sharing why you became the woman that you are, why you do the work you do. Walk us through childhood up until where we are today.
Yes, I will. And it's funny because you said earlier, food first. And believe me, for me, the story is that I suffer from anorexia and bulimia throughout, oh my goodness, probably from 14 to 24. And I always say, because I know your story too with alcohol, Sarah, that I always say for me, and I'm not speaking for all people with eating disorder, that you're never done. You always will be someone with a food disorder. Now, it's not consuming my life anymore, but I can't say that it's not something that is always with me. It always will. So for me, I always say that I got into health to heal myself. I went down, I'm 5'9". I'm currently, I don't know, 140 some pounds. And I went down to 89 pounds. So you can imagine how sick I was. Thankfully, I had great, loving parents, very supportive, but they were at a loss. So, for the parents out there that have kids with addiction or food eating disorder, it's not an easy thing. But because I was really athletic, and it's the sports that really kind of kicked my rear end, because my volleyball coach, we were at a provincial tournament, benched me, and I was so ticked. I'm like, hey, I'm one of your best player and you're benching me. But he was probably afraid that I was going to pass out, literally. So, slowly I started eating again, and I needed to find ways to heal myself. And back then there was no Google, and, I'm from a small town, so the access to information was really limited. So I read all I could. So that became my journey. Then went to Ottawa U and Human Kinetic, and then discovered that there was actually a chiropractic school in Canada, because I didn't think, we had any. Plus, I didn't speak English at that time. So anyway, I always say ignorance is a bliss. If I had known how hard it was going to be to study in a second language, I don't think I would have done it, but I'm happy that I did. So for me, and in the middle of all this, I also competed in natural bodybuilding and figure. And a lot of people will say, well, Nathalie, that's not really healthy to do to that extreme. And I would almost agree with this, but to me, it was part of my therapy. It was part of my learning, because back in the day, and again, it's changed. We used to eat 6 times a day, and you needed to be really regimented. And for me, it was actually a good thing, because it made me think more as food for fuel. And then, fast forward, and it's really in recent, maybe 5-8 years, that I make food a priority in terms of what I put in my body. Not that it ate bad, but, I just wasn't paying too much attention, because for me, food is fuel. I have friends that they make recipe and they get all excited. I'm like, yay for you. But for me, it's not a big deal.
Is that because you're not a huge foodie, like you're not a fan of the flavors and the textures and cooking? Or is it because you have adopted this lifestyle and this belief system that you just see food as fuel, as a tool to help you live your best life? I'm wondering if there is again, everyone's different. And I think that there's a place for people who love food and just, they get off on, they're called foodies, they live to go, on vacations that include the food. And I'm not ever trying to tell people to not do that, but we can keep doing that, but let's be mindful that the body still has specific needs. So I'm wondering, in your case, do you ever just dig into a juicy cheeseburger, or do you enjoy food in that way at all? Or is it always just about the fuel?
A little bit of both, I will say. I mean, of course, if, it's a nice, meal that I've never had before or something, yes, for sure. But I think it's a combination. And if I'm busy, right now I'm going to be heading to the clinic after this, and I know that I won't have time to eat. So I'm going to make myself a huge shake for my afternoon with tons of stuff that I know is going to fuel my body, because, I also do intermittent fasting and so forth. So to me, it just is. And, is it right? Is it wrong? It just is. But now I know how to deal with it, that I still have to prioritize it more, which I do. I mean, now I actually enjoy going grocery shopping and going through the aisles and looking at what's new and so forth. Now, I'm still not cooking up a storm in the kitchen. My meal prep is pretty 3-ingredient kind of thing, but I'm okay with this. My husband just keeps adding spices to it, but he can do whatever he wants. I'm okay with the way things are, and I'm always trying to get even better at it by, being more adventurous of what I'm buying and trying, different things. So I think everybody is different.
And do you feel like with a history of disordered eating, do you feel like that's part of it too, that you sort of don't allow yourself to go into those patterns of overeating, of eating high calorie foods, of sort of junkier foods? Do you think that it's a carryover of the disorder?
Yeah. Yes. 10 years ago. Now I don't think that, like I said, it's not consuming my life anymore. Now, sure, I'll have some thoughts sometime that I know most people don't have those thoughts, but I think more people are thinking about food than we think. It's not like every day you're going to say to your coworker, hey, what are you thinking of, and so forth. So it's just, I think it'd be interesting to sit down with 100 people and ask them, what is their relationship with food? And we probably would be surprised of, the repertoire of answers that we would get, and thinking and realizing that it's consuming people's life a little bit more, because a lot of time it's associated with reward. And
Totally.
that's the part sometimes that, people will say, oh, I deserve that glass of wine, or I deserve that dessert. Well, I can't say dessert, too many S's here. So again, I'm not saying that you don't, and I'm not saying you need to be perfect. There's that 80-20 rule. You don't want to stop living either. Like it all depends. But I think that awareness is key of why are you having those behaviors, and are they consuming your life? Are they serving you at this point in your life? And that's a question that I ask myself, that question on everything in my life all the time. Is my current life, is my current routine, is it serving me? Is it serving me now? Might have served me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but is it serving me now? So I'm all about asking myself questions all the time, just to make sure that I tune in and say, let's slow down here. I'm not heading in the right direction. And it's not like I have all of the answers. I really don't. But now I feel that I embrace that uncertainty even more. Publishing a book. Do I know where the next 6 months, year is going to be like? No, but guess what? I'm okay with it. And I'm excited about the possibilities. And I think we got to see it as more fun and more playful when it comes to trying different things. And, that it is from exercise, from nutrition, meditation retreat, just, try something different, try something out of your comfort, and see how you do.
I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at things, just that it can be fun to think about our health in all of these ways. Really, what is not fun is when we get a diagnosis and all of a sudden our whole life is wrapped around that diagnosis. We're either in a hospital, or we're on medication, or we're dealing with the repercussions of that and doctor's appointments and visits. And our whole life is now wrapped around that, as opposed to if we can, and not to say, and I know you share this view as well, eating well, exercising, taking the right supplements, sleeping does not guarantee not to go through any type of health challenge. We all have those things that come up in our lives. But I think that we build resiliency, and we can enjoy the experience of living so much more when we're feeling healthier, when we're waking up with more energy, when we're using these hacks to help us build great habits. And what I was thinking of when you were chatting is that, we all have habits that we do. We have the easy buttons. They might be drinking that glass of wine after work, or eating the chocolate cake every day, or going for poutine or pizza at lunchtime with the colleagues, because that's just what you do. We have these habits already. It's about hacking them, using the power of the brain to know that we can change those habits into healthier ones, and we can start where we are. We don't have to. That's what I love about the levels that you've created in the book, that give people those prompts to be able to say, okay, I'm not ready for 3, but I can do maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, and I know that, I talk about the 80-20 rule, and sometimes for people, it'll be the 60-40 rule. And then, they create momentum. And I'm a big fan of not necessarily removing things, but adding more of the good things. So, you start doing more of the right things, and now it could be a 65-35. And again, in times of our lives, you might be at 90-10, and then you'll slip down. And it's just that awareness of knowing where you're at. And sometimes, you get off the wagon a little bit, and then you say, this is, I need to pay attention. Those habits that have snuck in, are not serving me well. So what can I do to get back to them? And knowing that those are still things you want to do. Don't do things just for the sake of doing things, and going through the motion as well, I think is important.
I love that. And I just think that it's so good. You were sharing that you're always checking in. You're always asking yourself questions. How am I feeling? What am I doing? Is this action actually taking me closer to where I want to go? What are these thoughts? Are they serving me? Like, I think so many of us, again, just kind of run our lives on autopilot. We just do the same things over and over again, day in and day out. And we don't take that step back to really go inward and uncover whether we're living a life we are enjoying living, or if we're just doing this thing that eventually will become sort of being born, working, paying bills, and dying. And that is just not fun in any way. And life is truly meant to be enjoyed, not to be endured. And so I do want to ask you, when those thoughts come in, those disordered eating thoughts come in, I want to know, how do you handle them now? You know, you're 30 years after that, or however many years after the eating disorder. But I'm wondering, when those thoughts still come in, like with me, my addiction sort of sits here. I know it's there. I respect the fact that it's there. I don't touch alcohol. It's just off the table for me. We have to eat food. And so the fact that you've set
different, right?
It is different. It is different. And the fact that you've set your life up to view food in a more positive way, that it is fuel, that it is nourishing your body, that it's helping you to enjoy optimal health. But what do you do when those thoughts come in? And I want to backtrack. What are those thoughts? What are those? I'm curious about it, if you're willing to share.
Oh, these are two great questions. So those thoughts are usually about weight, managing a weight, which I barely weigh myself now, but it's just, I'm all about, how I feel. And let's say, I'm starting to feel, maybe I've, put on a few pounds, because you put on a pair of pants and you go, oh crap. Okay. Then I would go, okay, what has changed in my habits? That little dark chocolate that you're taking every day, little square, well, maybe it's been more than this. Maybe you haven't been sleeping enough. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm not sleeping too great. So I'm going to make sure that my sleep hygiene is better. Maybe for now, I need a little bit of adrenal support. I need some melatonin a couple of nights just to get my sleep back on track. And saying no to things in the morning, because I know that it's my personal prime time and I know I need to set that time. So that'll kind of be my rationale of sitting back and say, why did my routine slip off a little bit? And then, just thinking of it that way, not being so concerned. But I think you have to pay attention to those thoughts, because they're little resets. Like I said, they don't consume me as much as they used to, because I was so upset with it. I mean, I would starve myself. Now it's funny, because I do practice intermittent fasting, but completely in a different context. And I think, the way of that I'm doing it is a lot healthier. But it's just, again, just seeing those things as little check-in points to bring me back to my routine, my goals, my plate, literally, not physically my plate, but what's coming at me. It's like, okay, we've got this. Okay, well, maybe it's time to take this one off. And I always talk about the not to-do list, which I try to do, because it's just like, okay, you know what? That's been on my list way too long. Scratch that and, get it out of my brain. I don't want it there. If I get back to it, I will, but just, let's clean the clutter that can be there. So, that's kind of how I assess things. And it's usually because I've neglected key elements, even just grocery shopping on Sunday, and you don't do that, then you're kind of winging it through the week, and you're like, oh, so having the right things in the house is huge too. So if you don't buy the food that are going to be triggers, it's going to help.
Oh my gosh, I totally believe our weight is an environmental issue. It is not a genetic issue. It is about what is in our house, in our kitchen, in our fridge, in our pantry, what we are bringing in. We can do so much to control that. We can really change the game if we just control our environment, what's going on inside our own homes.
Yeah, it's huge.
What is one final parting message that you want anybody to know who was thinking about picking up this amazing resource? What do you want us to know about Hack Your Health Habits or your work?
Well, I think the message is it doesn't have to be that hard. It's much more simple than you think. And the other thing too, because I'm preparing for an event in New York City, and I've come up with an analogy with our health compared to our wealth. So if we knew what our wealth or what we would be worth, I think we would pay attention a lot more. So it's kind of the tagline of Scotiabank, you're richer than you think. And we are richer than we think when it comes to our health. And the tools in the book are going to help you increase your worth in your own health. And I mean, we're the best thing we can invest in, right?
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful advice. I love it. We will end it there. Thank you so much, Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp. Tell us, where is the best place to find you?
drnataliebeauchamp.com, hackyourhealthhabit.com as well. The book is available in chapters, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.ca.com. It's pretty easy to find online if people want to get a copy. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your energy, your passion, your love. I know you inspire a lot of people in our community and worldwide. So thank you also for what you do.
I love you dearly. And I just wanted to mention on my last note, as you were talking, it made me think that you are so relatable because of where you've come from up and through. You understand, you never come at it from a place of judgment. Whenever I know lots of your patients who just love and adore you because of the way that you can approach it, where it's you're pushing people to achieve their optimal health, but you're not shoving it down their throat. You're really gently leading, and that is what you do best. You are a true leader. You're an inspiration to me. I love you so much. Thank you so much for spending the time with me.
Thanks.